everyone. Welcome to Film Talk, a podcast where two gals talk everything film, television, and everything in between the reels. I'm your host, Eliana Melendez, head of marketing and a critic here at FullCircleCinema.com. And joining me today, as usual, is my gorgeous co-host who has lovely new hair this week.
Yes.
And today we're going to be chit-chatting about what we're watching this week. And it's going to be kind of like our little segment every once in a while of the Triple W. So what we're watching, we're going to talk about a couple of films, namely I'm Your Woman and Kajillionaire. Everything we're going to be mentioning is available on streaming currently. So you can go ahead, as soon as you watch this, click off and go watch what we're recommending. So it's pretty accessible. So we consumed some pretty good cinema this week, if I do say so myself. I
we
think,
did.
It just so happened to be directed by women. I don't know if the third option that we have today was directed by women, but it's very female centric this week, so it's very on brand. What we want to recommend first and kind of dive into is the recent release that actually came out almost a month ago on Amazon Prime Video. It's called I'm Your Woman, directed by Julia Hart, starring Rachel Brosnahan. We were struggling a little bit with her name earlier, but Rachel Brosnahan is starring in this movie, and you guys may know her from The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I have not personally seen that show myself, but now I'm kind of convinced to go watch it. And I'm Your Woman is about... It's kind of difficult to describe, but even if it's such a simple movie, it's basically about this woman who is the wife of a criminal, just kind of like a mafia guy, and it's really just focused on her perspective during this whole kind of mafia mystery thing, but the mafia mystery is sort of happening in the background. We're just seeing it from her side, where a lot of things are being kept from her in order to like protect her and such. And it is quite interesting. It's a very purposefully, slowly paced film, which to some people could be absolute agony, but it was done in such a way, I feel, that you were feeling the slow agony with the main character, because she was going through it as well, and it's very immersive in that sense. But yeah, it's very much one of those you have to sit down in the right mood to watch. But when you do, I think it's something that does stand out, especially for people that enjoy very slow paced dramas. It is also advertised as a thriller, like a crime thriller. I don't think I would describe it so much as that. I think it's a little bit more drama and a little bit less crime thriller. It's a decent balance though, and it does have its action, but it do not go in thinking that this is going to be, The Godfather. It's not what that is at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, do tell us your thoughts, because Josie saw this after I did. I was just kind of waiting for her reaction, because when I first saw this, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of screaming at the the TV, being like, "What are you doing?" Because Rachel Brosnan's character is very awkward. It's very sheltered homeschooler, and I would know that. So her character it's kind of kooky, and the way that she talks is just, she points out the obvious a lot of times, and it's, like the character mentions, she's never been on her own ever, so it's kind of her journey of surviving with her child and her baby on her own for the first time, and learning how to fry an egg, essentially. That was a big journey for her during this film. So do tell us your thoughts.
So I would definitely agree that I don't see this so much as a crime thriller, more as a suspense. I would trade those two, because I definitely did feel the suspense at times, especially there's a scene where a door is suddenly open and you're like, oh, if this were a horror movie, I'd be freaking out right now. But I would agree. She gives off these sheltered vibes, mostly because there's one line at the very beginning where she says that she's never been alone in her entire life, which immediately tells you what kind of person she's going to be throughout the film. And it was very interesting to follow her throughout the movie. I wanted to point out that this is in fact directed by a woman and it is co-written by a woman and a man. So the director, her name is Julia Hart, and the co-writer is Jordan Horitz. And if I'm not mistaken, Julia Hart has directed so many other great films like Fast Color and a couple of I know Stargirl on Disney Plus. So she's directed a couple of things that people genuinely do love, and this is no exception.
So yeah, this movie definitely has a very very strong 1970s aesthetic going on. It is like as soon as the first shot rolls in, you're like this is the 70s. We're here.
Mm-hmm.
It is a vibe and I really liked how it wasn't so much a spectacle of the 70s, which is something that I find is kind of not a weak point per se, but it's something that movies when they're like from this century and they want to do a 70s theme, you feel like they're focusing more on it's the 70s, and
Yeah.
that tends to be a crutch. I feel like this was not the case in this film. I feel like the aesthetic and the setting complemented the story very well, and it didn't overpower it. That's what I wanted to say. Yeah, it doesn't feel
Yeah.
overpowering.
I absolutely love that detail. And that is one of the things I kept thinking about the most. Because usually in a period film, they will emphasize what period they're in. And even if they don't mention it, you'll see it somewhere written or something. But here, you have to pinpoint it. And immediately I was like, wait, we haven't been told what century, like what moment in time we are. So, what decade, not century.
Yeah.
um, so, there was a moment where I went, since the 70s. And I was
Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
I like that detail. I like that you actually have to think about it.
Yeah, I think a really good indicator of it's the 70s without saying it's the 70s. Tell me you're in the 70s without saying you're in the 70s. The phone. The phone she uses, and they made a huge emphasis on this phone scene, the telephone itself. You're like, this is definitely like mid to late 70s type of
Okay.
phone. Like, you can kill a man with this phone.
You're gonna laugh.
Uh-huh.
The way I realized what time it was because of her wardrobe, because it reminded me
That
of that
too.
70s show.
Dude, her wardrobe also, I have to shout out the wardrobe designer. Her wardrobe is fabulous.
Yeah.
So many of her pieces were so like perfectly timeless 70s. It wasn't like tacky 70s. Like a lot of the things that she wears, I could grab off the shelf at an Urban Outfitters right now. Like it
Yeah.
looks really really timeless, but it doesn't look in your face. Like it's just I love the attention to the detail of the aesthetic. So this movie is very pretty because of that. It is slow. Please be patient with it. But it does like it keeps you intrigued. I can say that I was never bored with the movie. As kind of absurd as it got in some moments, and I found it absurd because of, the shock of this main character pointing out the obvious subtleties in other things. It's like when you're watching something and then there's a kid next to you and they're like, "Oh my god, because he did this." Like, yes, we that was that was the
Yeah.
intended point. That was kind of how she spoke. Like she's like figuring out subtle social cues as the movie progressed. And I thought it was dumb at first because I'm like, oh, they just kind of wrote her off as kind of a dumb character. But as it goes on, you realize no, she's legitimately like she hasn't had social contact very often, clearly, and she is
Mhm.
pointing out very, very blatant social cues with the other characters. I also like that the cast was very tight. It didn't complicate
Yeah.
itself. It's a very straightforward story. The few actors that are featured, they do great. It's very good. There's not a lot of. It's kind of like that no fuss kind of movie with that kind of energy. I think I personally can recommend it. If you're into that, I think Julia Hart did a marvelous job. Pardon
Mm.
the adjective. She did a marvelous job with the whole aesthetic and the story. The story does it has its highs and its lows. It's not perfect. I also was it with this movie. Read the Amazon reviews. Amazon reviews on Amazon Prime movies and series are so wild. They're so
Yeah.
insane. So yeah, there's a lot of people when they don't like, most people that don't like a movie are the ones writing that review underneath with like that 1 star, and they're usually so ludicrous. Like the reasons they don't like it, it's just so lame. So that's like top tip if you want to be entertained with ridiculous reviews aside from ours, then read the Amazon comments below Prime Video. But that's basically I'm Your Woman. If you have
Yeah.
anything else to add.
I genuinely recommend it. It is, I watched another film that we're going to discuss, and then I watched this one, and immediately I was like, tonight is the night of cinema. I have been blessed this evening. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
It was
Because,
very creme de la creme, very
yeah,
premium content.
honestly. And I just hope that I don't think Julia Hart will get a directing nom, but I wish she would, because it's one of those films where if the directing is not done well, if the shots aren't engaging enough, because it is very slow, but it is for a good reason. If you are not engaged visually, it will not work. And I do believe that Julia Hart did a good job of carrying the story from beginning to end.
100%. Yeah. There's not much else that we can say about it without going into like spoiler territory and picking apart the story. But yeah, it's not a very complicated movie, so it's definitely one of those where you can just, vibe, sit back with a glass of wine or whatever you prefer, and just put it on and enjoy for the next, it's not very long, it's like 2 hours. But the 2 hours, you don't feel the 2 hours, which is very strange for a slow movie. It's done pretty well. That's how you know the pacing is like, we know what we're doing. So yeah.
Good description. Slow burn, because it does have crime. So slow burn crime suspense film. Because I wouldn't say a thriller, but it does have crime. So that's the gist of it.
It's very intriguing, though. It does leave you in suspense. Like the story is in the background, and as you know, again, very much focused on the wife and the whole crime mafia scenario. And it's like I mentioned, we don't see that perspective a lot.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That this feels like the thought came into my mind. It feels like the real story is happening with the husband Eddie, which is what we usually get. But someone said, no, let's go with the side character that has to hide while the husband is doing all the mafia stuff. Yeah. Let's follow her. And that's basically what you get. And it was a very interesting story to follow. And I wish we could get more of these kind of side character stories being the main protagonist.
Yeah, because, a lot of the times they might even be more interesting than the main story. So yeah, I liked it. I think it was, everything complemented each other very well, very balanced. And you can find, I think I can link an Amazon Prime directly. So I'll link it below. I'll figure out the techie bits, but check it out on Prime Video. It's included with your Prime account. And honestly, a lot of people have Prime and they don't consume Prime Video. And Prime Video has some pretty good stuff. Like, I could go on a whole episode on just Amazon Prime content. Like it has some good jewels, but that's a discussion for another day. We're gonna move into what we absolutely thought was fire, which is, I forgot. Oh my god, I had the director's name in my head just a second ago. Please, could you introduce us to this film, please? Because I forgot the director's name. I'm so sorry.
So we are going to be talking about Kajillionaire. No spoilers. It was directed and written by Miranda July.
That one. I remember. I remember now. So it is also starring Gina Rodriguez and Evan Rachel Wood. Yes, Evan Rachel Wood. And
Rachel Brosnan is secretly in this one too.
Really?
No, it's that. It felt like you were going to say Rachel Brosnan.
Well be.
It felt like you were going to say Rachel Brosnan, and I'm like, she's secretly in this one too.
She might as well be, honestly, but yeah. Kajillionaire is a story about a family of grifters, I should say. Yeah, like grifters is the term. They're basically two senior parents with their 26-year-old daughter, who they have explicitly raised for the sole purpose of being a thief. So these guys are basically petty thieves and scam artists, and they basically survive off of these scams. And the scams do get pretty elaborate. I've never seen some of these cons before, and it was kind of one of those things where you're like, oh, do people do this in real life? Is that why there's like this type of security in this type of facility? Like people actually do
Mm-hmm.
these things. Um, so you followed a story of Evan Rachel Wood's character Old Dolio, which the story behind this main protagonist's name is funny in and of itself. But Kajillionaire is one of those indie comedies that unsurprisingly do not end up being super comedic and actually end up being really real and very
Mm-hmm.
like heartbreaking in a lot of moments because it is so real. And I think it manages to balance the humor, but there wasn't so much a focus on being funny rather than being real with these characters. Yeah, you really loved Kajillionaire. I loved it, but I don't like Kajillionaire made an impact on you. So let's
Yes.
hear from Josie's perspective on Kajillionaire.
So, Kajillionaire, just for me, like in my review, I wrote, am I looking for diamonds in the dust? Maybe, but still, it was wonderful. So, the film for me definitely felt like it brings out the deepest emotional parts of you that you have been ignoring.
Mm-hmm.
There are definitely some instances that maybe not the whole movie will get those feelings out of you, but there are definitely different bits here and there that will evoke some sort of emotion from you. And it's just immeasurable. It is hard to compare it to anything else. It just felt very unique. So I commend Miranda July on bringing something so unprecedented and original in a time where we're bombarded by remakes and unoriginality. And I've just never seen a story quite like this before. Sure, we've seen heist films before, we've seen indie comedies, but we haven't seen this story, which it just has genuine moments where you literally just sit down and think, especially this one moment with an earthquake. I'm
Yeah,
not
it
gonna go
gets
into details, but
existential.
it gets very
It
existential.
really throws you in for a loop with the topics that it touches. It touches not only on like existence itself, which sounds
Mm-hmm.
really pretentious, but it's really done in like a lovely way that's funny, but at the same time you're like, oh my god, I'm losing it. But it
Yeah.
also it touches on that. It touches on class struggles as well. How really poor people have to literally scrape by, and it's rough. It is really rough. So you get to see the perspective of that with this family and with individuals. It also touches a lot with toxic parenting
Mm-hmm.
and how that affects people even well into their adulthood. And yes, this is perhaps an exaggeration in some of those traits for comedic purposes and dramatic purposes, but it is definitely something. It's a very real struggle that a lot of people go through more than you might think. And I really like how it was presented. It also, I'm not a huge fan of Gina Rodriguez as an actress simply because not a lot of her work has
Mm-hmm.
called my attention personally. But I really liked how her character fit in here as like an outsider perspective, and
Mm-hmm.
as someone just actually being sincere with old Dolio, Evan Rachel Wood's character. Um, yeah, it was kind of weird at first. It does feel it's awkward on purpose. It's very much it's cringe with a purpose. But
Mm-hmm.
if you can push through that, it's actually a really wonderful story that takes some turns that you don't necessarily expect. But once they come, you're like, of course this would happen. Like this feels like a very natural progression of the story. And like you said, it's so refreshing to see something original. The
Yeah.
originality and the quirkiness of this movie is something to really admire and appreciate. And it's kind of one of those movies where us as avid film film lovers and cinephiles here, that the dream is to make our own films one day. Fingers crossed. it's kind of one of those movies where you're like, this is what I aspire to create. I aspire to
Yeah.
create film and art that provokes like this. It's very much I don't want to say provocative because that just sounds like, it has a double entendre, but it is very emotionally provoking film without being like depressing in a sense. It is heartbreaking,
Yeah.
but it doesn't leave you with a sense of dread, which I feel like a lot of films that touch on an existential crisis can do. It's actually hopeful. It's very
Yeah.
positive, which I found really surprising and refreshing, and I loved
Yeah.
that.
It didn't feel draining at all, which
Mm-hmm.
is usually how you feel with existentialism. And I absolutely loved how the film outdoes itself with every scene. No, like it does a good progression from good to great. Every scene outdoes itself, which I really enjoyed. And the writing was just very appealing. It went with a good flow. It was a bit of a slow burn as well, but with good reason. There are definitely pockets of stillness, which I really enjoyed, which also happens with I'm Your Woman. I love when films take a moment to genuinely breathe. Those small moments that you're just appreciating what you're watching, and you see the character actually processing everything, and it's a good way to introduce character, which Kajillionaire does so well. You know these people from the beginning. You know who they are, especially Gina Rodriguez's character from the beginning. You know what kind of person she is and how she's going to fit into the whole mess. And there's a twist with the parents that I saw coming from a mile away, and I was so angry. So I love, again, that this film actually riles you up in different ways and it gets different things out of you. So, I mean, listen, to me, it made it onto one of my favorite films ever. Because the point of a film, sorry, my tongue is tied today. The point of a film is to make you feel something. And if this film does not do that for you, please watch it again.
Rinse and repeat. If it didn't work the first time, just turn it on, turn it off, turn it on again. It'll work.
Yeah.
It'll work at some point because it's kind of impossible not to feel something with this, whether it be feeling identified with the main protagonist, with the toxic relationship that she has with her parents, to the point that one of the characters, Gina Rodriguez's character, compares it to an addiction, which I thought was such an interesting way to view it, that particular subject. So yeah, they dive into these topics very naturally. Nothing feels shoehorned in. Everything has a very lovely flow, as you mentioned, and those moments where it does give you a space to breathe and appreciate the film are still incredibly effective because it also makes it feel natural in the sense of the character's development per se, and nothing feels out of place because there is like such a journey from beginning to end. Like I feel like all of the characters come out almost totally different people, but it doesn't feel random. Like it doesn't feel like, oh, that all of the sudden they did this doesn't make sense. Everything makes sense in its own way, and yeah, it really makes you think in a non-pretentious way. And yeah, I really enjoyed that it also had little queer romance there, and so I don't want to get into spoiler territory, but I thought it was wonderfully done.
Yeah, I'm here like shoulder shimmy. I'm like,
if you're
yes.
into like that indie comedy, that's kind of like it's quirky, it's funky, but at the same time it's different. If you're in the mood to watch something different, Kajillionaire is your way to go. If I'm not mistaken,
Yeah.
it's available on iTunes and like video on demand and all of that.
Yeah. It's also, speaking of quirky, I would say that it's quirk but digestible, because sometimes quirky can get you can tell when someone is trying too hard, but for this one there's reason behind it. It is part of character. Again, it
It's not obnoxious.
has a purpose. Yeah. It it's not quirky just for the heck of it, which I really appreciated.
Yeah, I think the common thread between these two films is that none of the elements are done purely for spectacle. Everything seems very purposeful and balanced in that sense, which we were discussing earlier. We kind of go in blind with movies, and usually about by the time it's halfway through, we can tell if it's directed by a woman. Like
Yeah.
you can tell with like the attention to detail and just certain elements where you're like, this is different. This is too refined. Not to say that male directors are not incredibly refined. They're
Yeah.
incredible male directors, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just that certain je ne sais quoi that just makes you
Mm-hmm.
go, this is lovely. I just sit down and just like, oh, this is nice. Like you really, it refreshes and renews your appreciation for film in that sense.
Yeah.
So I think both of these movies are really good recommendations, and we're
Shoulders
not
heavy.
being biased because I was honestly with I'm Your Woman halfway through. I'm like, I'm ready to rip this movie to shreds. Like I feel like this isn't going anywhere. But then I got to the point. I'm like, I can appreciate this. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you have my attention and you have my approval, but they had to earn it because I don't know why.
Yeah.
I think when you watch it, patience with the protagonist with I Am Your Woman.
Yeah. I was sold when they're at the diner
Ooh,
and
yeah.
when the scene where she's singing,
Mm-hmm.
the conversation between the two of them, that was one of the moments where I'm like, that's some good dialogue. Ooh. So
That was a really good scene. Like again,
yeah.
tight cast. The actors just played off of each other so well. Like they just
Mm-hmm.
shine. Like this was this was just you watching people honing in their craft. It was
Yeah.
very much that. It felt very. You know what Iron Woman felt like? It felt very theater. This was
Yes.
like it could easily be a stage production. I feel like it was
Yeah.
that kind of a feel. So if you're into that, I'm Your Woman's your number one go to. Highly recommend. But yeah, without diving into too many spoilers with those movies because we could go on about them all day. Definitely check them out. I'm Your Woman is available on Amazon Prime. Kajillionaire is available on a bunch of different video on demand platforms. You can get it on VOD, you can get it on iTunes, and I think also you can rent it on Amazon. But definitely check it out. I highly recommend. And a quick little mention, if you're into a series, if you're looking for something to binge and you already, kind of zoomed through Bridgerton, this was a recommendation based on Josie's viewing this week. So I saw it last night. I only saw the pilot, but Josie is actually, how many episodes are you in right now?
I'm 4 episodes in.
She's 4 episodes in. So take it away.
So to close this off, we are going to be talking about The Wilds, which is a TV series on Amazon Prime. It is an original Amazon Prime series. Mm-hmm. And The Wilds is wild. That is the tagline.
It's really. If you need to know what it's about, it's Lost, but if Lost were written by John Green.
Yeah. Essentially. It does have a bit, I would say that it does have a bit of the Maze Runner into it. I will not say why. That is up for you to figure out once you watch the pilot. Mm-hmm. But it was created by Sarah Stryker. Mm-hmm. So female supremacy. This is an episode about female supremacy. Congrats, you've made it. Yeah, you've made it this far. And these different girls, they're in high school and they get stranded on an island after a horrible plane crash. But they don't remember anything during the moment that they were on the plane, and they get turbulence in the moment that they're on the island. So they're trying to figure that out, but they're also trying to figure out how they're going to survive as castaways. So female castaway, a little bit of that too.
Yeah, it's definitely something that you kind of have to work through because I think it happens with both of us. Like the first half of the pilot, you think, this is a little bit lame. Like I feel like this is just going to be a teen drama, and perhaps this is just past my time. But the plot does kick in because you get multiple storylines as it's going, and it does. It's one of those things where yes, it goes back and forth, but it's done in a good way. It's not confusing. It's not like Lost where you have to, like, if you blink and you miss a certain detail, the context is out of whack. So it's a more easily digestible type of Lost, Maze Runner, young adult dystopian sort of series. There's a million different ways to describe it, but it's unique enough on its own that we both thought, why the hell didn't we think of this first?
Honestly, do you know how much money we'd be in right now?
Honestly, look at the material. because it's actually like a good idea. The execution and still
It is a good
to
idea.
be determined. It's well executed. Okay, so from what I saw from the pilot, the execution was there, but it wasn't like it's something that grows.
So far, it's a little iffy because it's good execution for this kind of story, but if they've done it a different way, especially to me, it's the directing. I do feel that if they took up different kind of cinematography, different camera angles, you would have such a chef's kiss kind of show.
Yeah, it's like that diamond in the rough that's still a little bit rough. Like it just needs a little polish. But I definitely see the potential for this series. Once we finish it, I guess we'll mention it in the next episode. Because this was, I think, a 10-episode run from another recent release from last month on Amazon Prime. So I don't know if it got renewed, but I do see the potential for this being like maybe a 2-3 season sort of a deal.
Yeah, they're currently filming season 2.
Okay, so there you go. You heard it here first, folks. It's got renewed and it has a future, so you're not wasting your time binging season 1 for sure. But it is definitely, it's one of those kind of YA novel type series that makes you go, who wrote this sometimes? But in a good way, because it is actually thoroughly entertaining. Because some of the dialogue, these teenage girls are so different. And I love that. I love how different they are, not for the sake of it, but just literally like, you know, no, I'm not like other girls. No kidding. All girls are different. So they really went for that here. And there are some characters that you'll probably hate, but you'll love to hate them. And there's some characters that you think you'll hate and you actually end up loving. So it's one of those series that it really takes you for the loop and is very intriguing. It's definitely interesting and entertaining.
Yeah.
So
it's one of those shows where I think I'm more in love with its potential than the actual show itself.
Fair.
But the good thing about that is that it keeps me watching and I do want to finish it. I do want to see where it goes, which is if it gets you to do that, then it's not all bad. And I do enjoy how it does have female writers on the show. It does have female directors, especially the first episode was directed by a woman, which I think you could tell there's a sex scene. And at that moment I was like, okay, let's see if this is directed by a woman or not. Because usually, especially it's focusing on the girl. So
a minor, by the way.
Yeah. So that's how you can tell.
I've never understood like teen dramas just being super like sexualized and explicit when these are children. These people are like 15, 16 and they're like things like Pretty Little Liars, Vampire Diaries and all that. Like eventually Vampire Diaries, they all grow up, but still, at least we didn't, from what I've seen, we didn't get that vibe from here. It's not like hyper-sexualized teen drama at all.
Which is what I enjoyed when I saw that it was in fact directed by a woman. I'm like, okay, I can breathe now. Yeah. But it does have its moments where dialogue specifically, it feels off. Especially there's one character that she prides herself in not being a feminist, which I get. There are people that do have that mentality. We've seen it a lot. It reminds me of when I was in 8th grade and I read an interview with Katy Perry said that she didn't consider herself a feminist because she doesn't want to hate men. I'm like, oh. So it's kind of that vibe that the girl gives off. But here's the thing. There are people that do think like that, but the show doesn't do anything to challenge it. So that's my only thing with it. Because she constantly is talking about, that's why there's one line where she says, that's why I don't hang out with girls because I don't like petty fights or jealousy. And it reminded me of like an early 2000s movie.
It's definitely representing, you know, that phase that a lot of us go through where we're like, I'm not like other girls. No shit. Yeah. we all go through that kind of immature little, I only hang out with boys because I'm not like other girls. Yeah. Like it's that kind of BS that you kind of
Yeah.
make up in your head because you're just fed this toxic femininity essentially and
Yeah.
this misogyny
So
in and of
yeah.
itself. So yeah.
So it's one of those things where I think that if these girls, when they get to college, whew, they're gonna see a whole different world.
Oh yeah.
Well, we don't know if they'll be able to get there because we haven't finished the show, but there is definitely a lot of growing up that they need to do. But again, it contributes to characters, so you immediately know what kind of people these girls are. Especially the one I was talking about. She has grown to be one of my favorite characters on the show. So go, yeah.
Yeah, everyone has like their own little quirk in a good way, and it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely. I even like the typical like beauty pageant Texan girl. Like she's
Yeah.
so intriguing. Like, and I really like how she's not obnoxious because they could easily go very obnoxious and stereotypical with the character like that. And she turns out to be a very sincere person and like clearly somebody that's gone through it. You can tell that all of these girls have gone through it before they were castaways.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely drama. There's definitely it's like it's a coming of age but make it survival.
Yeah.
Make it a little dystopian, but it's coming of age. It's definitely coming of age the hard way because you're just fleeing these teenage girls into a survival situation. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's definitely suspense, definitely intrigue with why they were specifically crashed together, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But
Because
yeah,
there is a reason.
there is a
We just don't
reason.
know yet.
We don't know yet. We don't know the reason. It's kind of like the ongoing mystery of the series of why these girls are there, why specifically the combination of these girls, and everything and else in between, everything surrounding them, why they all know CPR, why why they all each one of them has like their own kind of abilities in a sense, like, oh, I know, I used to go hunting with my dad and I know how to forage or this and that. So they all have kind of
Yeah.
like that baseline education to not die on the first night, essentially.
Yeah, because one girl knows how to hunt, the other two. There are two that are very good swimmers. Um, there's one that's like the book, very intelligent kind of girl. Then there's one that is very good with medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So they definitely feel cherry picked.
Very much so, but not in the sense that, oh, these characters were cherry picked, and no, it was part of the story. They were cherry picked part of the story.
Yeah.
The narrative demands it, and it's definitely intriguing, and it's a good time. It is wild. Some of the dialogue, you listen to it. I was listening to like the pilot, the girl narrating the pilot episode. Oh my god! If you love young adult novels, her narration is for you. But if you love to hate young adult novels, her narration is also for you. Because everything she says is like that typical 16-year-old who's like, the world is ending. That kind of a vibe.
And at that moment, we were infinite.
It's literally that. She opens her mouth and it's all, in that moment we were infinite. Oh my god, you don't understand. Like that's that's this girl's narration. So it is pretty funny if you're not a huge fan of that. It's fun to make fun of, but at the same time, it's kind of a, you either love what you're watching or you can't stop watching even if you're like hate watching it. It's one of those series, so definitely check it out. It's also on Amazon Prime, called The Wild, and definitely not a super like long-term investment binge. It's just 10 episodes, and each episode picks up, it has good pacing. But yeah, that's what we've been watching this week.
Yeah.
Essentially. I hope you guys enjoyed, and be sure to subscribe to Full Circle Cinema here on YouTube, and obviously check out Josie. Josie, where can they find you?
You can find me as at the Josie Marie on Twitter and Instagram, and you can find us at Film Posers on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc.
Yes, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Captain Melendez. And oh, also, if you are one of those people that are still on the fence on Bridgerton and whether or not you want to join the hype, Miss Josie also wrote a review on Bridgerton the series, so that'll also be linked down below. It's a quick read. It's a very good description without spoilers whatsoever.
Yeah.
So if you feel like you're too late to jump on the hype train with Bridgerton, don't feel that way. Just check it out and see for yourself if you like the show. Um, yeah, that's essentially it. Stay tuned for our next episode where we will be discussing the extremely highly anticipated WandaVision series that we've been waiting for a hot minute. And this is the first MCU anything we're gonna be getting in the past year. Yeah, it's been like over a year since we've seen any MCU content. So very excited. Stay tuned for that to see our thoughts on the first two. I'm Juliana Melendez.
And I'm Josie Melendez.
No relation. And this has been Film Talk. Bye, everyone.
Bye.